Hey everyone, this is Alan over at Cobblers Plus. Today we're going to be working on this pair of Frye boots. And it's a very nice, well-built boot that we like to work on. It's one of those few that they still design fairly well, especially for the price. Now today we're going to be putting on a pair of JR, John Rennbuck leather soles, and definitely giving these a pretty good upgrade. Usually the soles are fairly durable on these, but the JR sole is definitely a premium grade sole, and it holds up much better than just about any other leather sole out there on the market. So we'll start out by pulling off the heels here. Now, Frye has a few different builds on their boots. They've got Goodyear welted, they've got Blake stitch, they've got some soles that are just adhered as well. This particular one is what's called Goodyear welted. Basically, they've taken this section right here. There's a little line, you may possibly be able to see this top layer. That's what's called the welt. The welt is stitched to the upper on the inside, and then afterwards the sole is stitched to that welt, and then you can see that stitching right inside there just a little bit. So that's what's called a Goodyear welt, and that's the preferred method of having a boot or a sole built, just because it can be resoled time and time again and holds up better, and it's a little more resistant to water penetration into the boot or shoe. Okay, man, this one's a little bit harder to pull off. The reason why is they put this little rubber cap underneath the top lift. So this is the top lift, that's the part that you wear out and get replaced. But there's a rubber piece right there that they added into it. It's technically designed to help adhere the top lift to the heel base, and then be able to replace it later on. But as you can tell, it's a little bit harder to pull that one out than normal. Let's see. Alright, yeah, so it looks like these are just some short little gripper nails. So go ahead and put that one back in. Now sometimes they'll take long nails and secure the heel base at least a little bit with some long nails going on the inside like that. We usually have to remove those to be able to pull off this whole heel base, but these were short little nails there, so they were just holding down this rubber piece there. Alright, so we've got the other top lift off now. Now we're going to use what's called our heel pry there. It's a slightly angled tool that looks like a fairly wide screwdriver. It's a great multi-tool for cobblers because we're able to get into nooks and crannies and just pry certain things up, just like this heel base here. Now, a lot of cobblers, what they do is they just shove this heel pry underneath here and just pry it up. I'd much rather not do that, just because there's a high tendency of breaking that heel base potentially, and we always try to save the original heel base as much as possible, unless you specify that you want to get new heel bases put on. And even so, when we put a new heel base on, we still try to save the original just to make sure we match up the exact same height as well and shape on it. There's Cassie over here, my wife. Okay, so we got most of that just pried up. Now, there we go. Heel base is off. Make sure to mark which foot this is from. So this is left foot. Ticket number 9678. One pair women's boots. Okay, helps us keep track of which heel base goes to which pair. We want to write the ticket number down and which foot it's from. We do get our fair share of heel bases sometimes stacked up from different boots as well, and shoes. and we just want to make sure that they match up originally. You can usually match them up fairly well just from looking at them, but sometimes we actually get the same type of boot or shoe, and just maybe like a different color possibly, or it might be just a bit of a different size. We still want to make sure we match it up definitely with the original shoe or boot. Now there isn't really all that much wrong with this full sole here, like that there. Well, I guess that one's got a hole in it, so I guess there is quite a bit wrong. But the other boot, it was still fairly intact, just a little bit thin, but has a lot of salt damage. You can see all that white line there, and that salt really really destroys that leather significantly. So keep an eye out for that. If you ever have salt stains like that, you walked around in any kind of bad conditions, you may want to at the very least try to wipe them off with some kind of towel or something. But the JR sole, it is oak bark tanned, so naturally it's very resistant towards salt and water and certain chemicals as well, so it will hold up a lot longer than say an original factory sole or one of our house leather soles. The house leather sole that we have, it's the same equivalent to what your factory soles usually are, maybe even a little bit better, but that JR sole is a lot better. So I'm going to go ahead and do the same thing with this one while the tolling works its magic on this boot here, and I'll see you guys back in a second. Alright, so I've got both heel bases off and tolling did what it needs to, so now we're going to use our little knife here. You can see it's angled. It's a lot like a razor blade like that there, but I prefer to use this guy here. And we're just going to get in between the sole and the welt here and start cutting through these stitches. Cut them, and at the same time we're separating that sole from the welt just a little bit. And this takes years of practice not to accidentally cut into that welt, but sometimes it happens anyways. We end up needing to fix our own mistake, but at least it's something that's fixable afterwards. But it rarely ever happens. I don't know how many years it's been since it's happened to me necessarily, but it can happen to just about anyone, and it's not that big of a deal necessarily. Well, in a way it's a big deal, I guess you can say, just because it's extra work for us that we got to do. Now this isn't a full 360-degree Goodyear welt. It doesn't get stitched all the way around, so this back area here where the heel base is, it's actually not stitched. So we're going to get back in here with our heel pry and just start pulling this area up. There we go. Nail here. Now some of the nails that we see, the heads that were under the heel base, like this one here, they're actually just holding down this back area of the sole, and we're going to be removing those anyways and replacing them. So if I see any stragglers, I prefer to remove them now. It makes it easier to do this right here and pull them up. Some companies, they'll run a bunch of nails all around here, and it makes it a lot easier if we take out at least a couple of them if they're sticking up. But this one wasn't too bad. Got that guy off there. Sole goes in the trash. We've already got the thickness matched up on it, because there are different thicknesses of soles, of course, and we made sure to match up that thickness. I got the phone going off, but just gives you an idea of what's going on underneath here. So we've got the shank there, that's still intact. It's a very short shank actually. Usually they go from about here to the very back of the heel, but looks like they just have a little small one there. And every company is a little bit different there. You can see that cork right here, that's all rotten out, and we're going to replace that as well, that little cork area. The cork is what fills in that gap. You can see the gap here, right there. It's kind of drop down almost at a 90-degree angle. Possibly you might be able to see it, but this is where the welt is actually stitched to the upper in this section. And usually in this area in the ball of the foot, you can really feel that little lip there in some cases. I guess some people can feel it, not everyone. And the cork has multiple reasons to be there, and reason one, of course, is to fill in that gap basically, and that void, in other words, so you're not feeling those little ridges. The other one is that it helps absorb shock, and the third thing is it's a great support feature. Once that cork molds to your foot, it becomes a little more customized to your foot in particular. Now on dress shoes, for example, most of the time they do cork filler either all the way from the toe area that starts right here before the welt all the way to the heel. Sometimes they'll go about this far, just like here on Western boots. Sometimes they'll go a little bit farther. On Western boots, probably 90-95% of the time they do just the ball of the foot area, because that's where most of your pressure ends up sitting, because there's a little bit of a heel on there, and so they don't really necessarily need to put the cork all the way back here ever. But at this point, we're gonna reach inside, start pulling up this insole that they have in here. And the reason why we need to remove this insole is because you can still see the nails kind of sticking out right there. And what we need to do is replace those nails basically. So there's the insole there. Put that up here next to the heel bases. And yeah, we're gonna be running new nails inside, so we need some kind of insole to cover it up. All right, so we're here over at our sanding machine now, and we're just gonna go ahead and sand off all the old glues here and everything, and then get all this old cork sanded out. I mean, most of them we can remove with our fingers, but there's a few nooks and crannies that we have to sand out anyways as well, plus the old glue too. So we'll go ahead and get started. It's gonna get a little noisy. I'll turn my hat around so it's not in the way, but if the noise is bothering you, you can go ahead and skip over this part if you'd like. So let's get started. That's it for the sanding at the moment, so we'll go ahead and move on back to the workbench and start getting ready to fill in that area there where the cork needs to be replaced. So we'll see you at the workbench. Alright, so I did forget to mention that we actually have to pull out these old stitches here from the welt, and we're over here at our machine that spins with this little attachment here that's designed to pull out the stitches. You might be able to see some here already from another pair I just did a little while ago, but usually I have my trash can under here and it falls into the trash can, but there's a whole pile that has yet to be cleaned up. I'm too busy, and usually my son comes in and helps me out, but he hasn't been able to come in recently to help clean up the shop a little bit. But we'll go ahead and get started. It's gonna get a little noisy here again. Alright, so I don't know if you can tell, but I got most of the stitches out. There's a few stragglers every now and then like that there. Those we'll have to get by hand. So the other one. Alright, so we got whatever we could with the machine. Now we're just going to go through by hand and just pull them out. I won't bore you with all that, but it's very simple, just by hand. So I'll see you guys in a little bit once it's time to glue. Alright, so we're back here again. We've got all the stitches pulled out. We just pulled them out using some pliers like that there, and a little awl there. But time to get everything glued up for that cork. We just need to put a single coat. Usually we don't need to put double coats of any kind, but we might want to make sure we get into the nicks and crannies a little bit more. Now at this point, we also checked to make sure that all the welt is stitched down and intact everywhere. You saw how I was slipping off of that machine there when I was removing the old stitches, and it was mainly because I was trying to avoid the camera, but you know, it happens also without it in the way too. But during that process, it kind of helps pull back some of the welt area here to see where there might be some weak points also, because we apply a bit of pressure on that machine. And then after we're done removing all the stitches, we examine, well actually during removing any access stitches by hand, we examine to make sure the welt is still intact. So the welt is perfectly fine on this one, otherwise we'd repair it, stitch it up by hand, and that in those sections that may be damaged, but it was perfectly fine. And we're going to give this about 10 or 15 minutes to dry, and then we're going to stick the cork pieces in the oven, makes them a little bit more moldable. That's kind of what they look like right there. And we'll just stick them together. I'm not going to bore you with all that. After they're stuck on there, I'm going to go through, sand it out, and make sure it's all flush, and then start gluing up the boot and the sole all around like that. I'm going to be doing 2 coats on the leather soles and 2 coats on this section forward afterwards. This here is a plastic piece. It's a Wren. Kind of helps keep that shape there, and we don't necessarily need to double glue it in any way, so we'll get that taken care of, and I won't show you all that just because it's just gluing, but I'll meet you back when it's time to stick the soles onto the boots. Alright, so we're back here again. We're about to be sticking on the sole, and I'm dumb enough to forget that I still had to mark this so that it's as centered as possible with that JR logo. Now, you know, we don't have to necessarily get it perfect, but we like how it looks. We love that JR logo, so we try to get it as close as we can always. There we go. That's a little more better of a shape now. But I just pulled this out of the oven too, so it's nice and malleable as well. Now I'm just gonna try to center this as much as possible and line everything up. There we go. I'm going to take this over to the press and press it. Let me transfer everything over to it so you guys can see how that works there. Alright, so we're over at our press now. You can see this is the heel last right there, and then we've got our foot last. And we're just going to stick this on like that there. And just press it down. To try to do this kind of quick while it's still nice and warm and malleable, so that the sole really forms nicely to the original boot shape and everything. And these are soft cushion pads underneath here. I gotta get around to replacing them. They've been running very good for us for well, let's see, I can't remember the last time we replaced them, but it's been a little while now. But they're still going all right. Just would rather replace them here sometime soon before they really give out on us. But we'll just hold it on there for just a short little while. Presses down the heel. Now we move it over to our foot last. There are different shapes and sizes of these foot lasts. The heel one like that there. There are a few different sizes of those as well. And then I've got these little wedges that I've made here. I like to position them in specific spots to really apply a little more pressure nicely and give it that nice curvature. But just hold it on there for just a few. You can still see some of the additional excess leather sticking out right here. I'm going to go through on my 5-in-1 and cut that excess off, so you guys will get to see that in just a second. Alright, so this is about done. I'm gonna go ahead and transfer everything over to now my 5-in-1, so I'll let you see what that looks like when I end up pressing this welt down a little bit better and cutting off that additional access there. So I'll see you guys there. Alright, so I'm back over here. This is our 5-in-1 here. It does multiple different things. We've got a cutter here, a welt press, skiver, so it does quite a few things for us. It's a very important tool for our industry. So right now I'm just going around the welt press area. You can see right there, it's just pressing down that welt so that it binds a lot better to that sole. Now the press that we had over there that you just seen me press everything on does a great job pressing everything together, but that welt, it's a little more flexible, and so sometimes we just have to go through it either way with that welt press right there. And now we're just cutting off that axis that I was just talking about. Okay, there we go. Got all that cut off. You can still see there's a fair amount of access there left, but at this point we don't want to get any closer to it, just so that it doesn't end up turning on us and inward. We don't want this sole to be angled inward. We're going to fix up everything on the sander and trimmer at this point before we take it to our stitching room and get ready to stitch it. So I'll do the same thing with the other boot. I'm going to allow this to cure for a little while and cool off as well before I continue working on it, just because it's still a little warm, and this needs to cool off to allow those adhesives to bind better. Now the adhesive, it cures well enough where it's workable, so we can work on it within about 15-20 minutes, but to actually be cured all the way so that it is wearable, it takes a full 12 hours to do so. So I mean, these are a call when ready anyway, so we're going to give her a call as soon as these are all ready and fixed up for her. But you know, we're going to allow 12 hours for them to cure before she picks them up, so that she can walk out the door if she decides to with these. Alright, so I'll do the same thing with the other boot, and we'll see you guys back here in a little bit on our sander to start sanding and trimming everything out. Alright, we'll see you in a second. Well, a little more than a second, definitely. So we'll see ya. Alright, so we're over here at our machine now. We're going to go ahead and sand out these edges and then hit them right here with that trimmer so that it's nice and smooth. Well, it's not going to be, you know, 100% smooth, but once we start varnishing it, that's when it really gets nice and smooth. But for now, this will do the majority of what we need it to on that trimmer there. It's basically little blades that spin very fast. In other words, they're not crazy sharp, but they're sharp enough to, you know, cut away at this leather edge here and make it nicer looking, more uniform. And we'll also go ahead and mark up our heel base where it's going to be sanded right there, making a line, and rough that up so that we can put some glue on afterwards. But we want to do that before we do any of the stitching so that we don't accidentally nick it at that point. So we'll go ahead and get started. It's going to get noisy. I'll fast forward it, otherwise if the noise is bothering you, go ahead and skip this part. Alright, let's get it going. with that, so we're going to go over to the stitching room and we're going to go ahead and stitch that up. Alright, so we're at our stitch room right now. Decided I'm going to leave this bottom plain. So we're going to spray it down with some water. The water is going to help lubricate the needle, being able to go through and soften up the leather as well because it's such a dense leather. Like I said, I may have said JR soles, they're usually unable to, well, they don't absorb water all that well, but we're at least able to get that top layer just enough wet to lubricate the needle going in. I'm going to mark up where the stitches start and stop. Right there. Okay, adjust my depth a little bit. Hopefully I don't get in the way here too much. Alright. Go ahead. These pointed toes that are very tricky. There we go. Alright, so we've got that all stitched up now. Now you saw that I didn't pre-channel the sole. This is what's called a closed channel stitch. So there's a little blade right over here on this foot that cuts into the channel there and allows the stitch to sit inside there. So we're not having to actually pre-channel it, and we call that actually an open channel stitch, where this one's a closed channel because once we go through it, hammering everything out or pressing it all out, it lays all of this flat and closes up that stitch right there. But that gives you an idea of what it looks like. I'll go ahead and finish out that second boot here in just a second. Alright, so we're back in the other room. Before I start gluing up that heel base, we actually have to smooth this out here where the stitches are. You can see it's sticking up. Maybe you might be able to see, but it's sticking up just a little bit right there. So we've got our ladies last on here. It gives us a little bit more of a straight edge, and we'll just hammer it around. Make sure this is locked nicely. There we go. You can see right there, it kind of closes it up a little bit nicer and protects that stitch better. I mean, you can still see a little bit of the stitch possibly inside, but not all that much anymore. So, while that sole is still a little damp, I've been trying to experiment a little bit with adding some patterns to the bottom. Usually I put our little Cobblers Plus logo right under here under the JR sole, but I forgot to, and I usually do that on the little hand press that I have, but again, I'd forgotten to do so. So I'm just going to take this little tool here. It has like a little pattern in it. I don't know if it's going to catch it or not, but I guess it's a little hard to see. But I'm going to spray it down. Where's my water? There's my water. Spray it down just a little bit more. This thing, it's just decorative. I mean, it's just for fun. I'm doing it to give it a little bit of characteristic, plus I'm trying to practice with it some more because it takes a fairly steady hand, and just recently really started using this thing quite a bit. There we go. There we go. Get the toe just a little bit more. Still a little hard to do, and it's gonna take some practice. I guess you can see it just a little bit there. It's somewhat faint, just across the back end there and the sides. And it's just for fun, trying it out. And all right, so like I said, I'm back here again. I did the other boot. We're gonna put these brass clinch nails in there in the back heel area. Now these are fairly long, as you can tell. They're definitely longer than the thickness of the sole right there. Can't really show it all that easily. I'll try to show it to you guys, but you can definitely tell it's longer. Now these are designed to go inside and hit against the cast iron last that I have in here, and then they hook like that there. They just dig in there and they become more of like a hook. That's why they're called clinch nails. They grab on and hold much better than say a regular nail because of that. Now the brass nails, they're going to hold up better because they don't corrode or rust up. So they'll hold up for many years before needing to be replaced. But again, these are underneath the heel base as well. Now we got to put some underneath this heel base because these aren't stitched all the way around over here in the back area. So we got to make sure that sole stays attached in case we ever say get this boot back and we have to replace the heel base itself. Okay, take that off. All right, you see the nails there, so they're in there nicely. I can't really show you on the inside, but they go inside there and just grab on like a hook nicely, and so they'll stay in place for many years. But I'll go ahead and do this other one off camera as well, so I'm not boring you guys too much with everything. And we'll just go from there, and I'll glue everything up, and when it's time to attach the heel base, I'll start doing that on camera for you to see that. So we'll see you guys a little later. Alright, so we're back here again. We've got the heel bases we're about to take out of the oven. So this is our right foot. I'll make sure to match them up. Oh man, this thing's pretty warm. I accidentally left it in that oven just a little bit too long, but that's alright. Okay, so we'll just put it on like that, and we're gonna press it now. Now I did forget to mention also that this little spot that came up here, I did put some glue in there as well, so that's getting glued down at the same time as the heel base. Now we're gonna let those sit on the press for just a little while because it's a thicker material. It's better to leave it on there. Afterwards, I'm going to go through with these pliers and kind of pinch down the sides just a little bit, possibly with the welt press, depending on how thick it is compared to my welt press, because there's a limitation what can fit under this thing. Afterwards, I'm going to end up putting the nails, the gripper nails that go on the inside, to attach that heel base a little more securely like that there. And gripper nails, they have those little ridges there. Camera doesn't really catch it all that well, but once it goes in, the ridges, they go downward at an angle so that they grab on nice and tight onto the materials. And I'll just transfer the camera over to that spot where our heel wheel is so you can see how that works as well. So I'll meet you guys over by the heel wheel. Alright, so we're over at our heel wheel now. I'm just going to switch out these attachments. Put the smaller one on. And this heel wheel, I should show you. You can see these little prongs here that stick out. Sorry, it's hard to angle it. There we go. But you can see these prongs right here sticking out. Those go inside those holes there. And they're designed to push the nails up into the material from the inside of the boot. So we're gonna start out by placing our nails. Let's see, this is Western heel, like that, that. Now on larger heels we usually use about 7. On a smaller heel like this we use 5 on average, sometimes 6. But because this is more of like a Western style heel. Oh, sorry, I hit that camera a little bit. Because this is a Western style heel, we have to make sure that they all go in right without sticking up through the sides there. Alright. Oh, dang it. Sorry, I keep hitting my stand there. Alright, there we go. Okay. Now, if I get this off, oh, I have to double check. Unfortunately, you won't be able to see it on camera, but there are nails on the inside now, just holding down this base a little more securely now. The glue will do majority of what it needs to, and then the gripper nails, they'll help significantly just in case that glue deactivates under, you know, hotter temperatures or some kind of chemical or something. All right, so we're gonna get this taken care of. I'm gonna, at this point now, glue the insole back inside here, and then sand this out a little bit more, rough up the bottoms, and then get ready to put on the top lift. It is the end of the day here today. I got a little sidetracked with a bunch of other projects at the same time and other repairs, so I'm gonna have to finish this out probably tomorrow then. So I'll see you guys then. All right, now we're about to be gluing up the heels. We already glued the insoles in, sanded up the edges just a little bit to even everything out. I'll sand up the heels on the 24 grit machine off camera, just because it's pretty basic, very quick too. And then when we start going into the more detailed sanding, where we have to use lighter grit, I'll show that on camera, and I'll see you guys then. All right, I'll see you in a bit. All right, so we're back over here at our 100 grit sandpaper machine, which is smoother. We've got everything sanded out. It's a little rough right now, so now we just got to smooth it out. We're going to start out with the belt sander down here, and then we're going to go over to what's called our Brister cone. It's a cone-shaped sander to get the inside just a little bit more right there. And then we've got our Numcake sander up top here. It's a nice little smooth finishing machine there. It's going to give us that smoother edge. All right, so it's going to get noisy. Let's get started, and flip my hat around so it doesn't get away. I have to wear my hat because of the dust flying around. I don't want to get all that grime in my hair. But it's going to get noisy, and just so I've got that a little more sanded out. Give you guys an idea. This is the one here that we sanded out. Looks a little bit smoother now. Not quite as rough, where this one's still fairly rough there, even on the heel, and then you can see that little lip sticking out where that other one doesn't have it. So I'll go ahead and finish this one off on camera, so I'm not wasting anyone's time too much more. And then we'll just move on and start working on finishing out everything. Now, I did forget that we're still also supposed to treat the uppers on these. Usually I start treating it before I get the sole on, but I completely spaced out on it. So we're gonna go ahead and treat the upper afterwards and get that going. So we'll see you guys back in a little bit. All right, so we're back here over at our workbench. Now, these boots do have some salt damage around these areas. So we're gonna spray it down with the vinegar and desalt mixture that we have here. Now, in most cases, if you're doing this yourself at home, you would probably have mostly just desalter, or if you do have quite a bit of vinegar, you can spray it down. But if you just have the desalter, it's a little more concentrated and works better if you just rub it down with a rag. And that's about it. But because we do a lot more, we spray it down so it really soaks in there nicely and deactivates that salt. Vinegar is very well known for doing that, and then the desalter, of course, that's what it's intended to do, so that mixture helps a lot. we're just gonna let that first coat kind of soak in just for about a minute. So while I'm spraying this one, that first boot is about done now, soaking it in. Now the top usually doesn't get affected all that much, but we still want to spray it all down so it has an even coat, otherwise you end up with potentially watermarks or some discoloration sometimes. Better mix up some more, I'm starting to run low in this bottle. I'll spray it down a second time. And then I'll take my nylon brush. Now this is a softer nylon brush. We do have some harder ones too that are a bit smaller. Oops. For more intense cleaning, but it does scratch up just a little bit. So I did lighten it up, of course, just a little bit, but you know, it's not a very harsh cleaner. There's no solvents mixed in here. And it just lightened it up because we brushed it. Now this is an oil treated leather, so that's going to happen quite often, that it's going to lighten up slightly, especially when you use a brush on it. But there's a little area here, you can see that there's a spot on it, and we're just going to take a little bit of 120 grit sandpaper. It looks like almost possibly a drop of super glue somebody must have dropped on it. While it's still a little damp, I want to try to clean up that area a little bit, and just kind of lightens it up there. I'm just going to go back through with our nylon brush and brush it over. Now the stain is, well, the little spot is still there, but it's a lot better than it was before because it was hard and crispy. So now at this point, I'm going to set all this aside. Okay. Now most oil treated leathers, they're actually, they start out as a nubuck or even sometimes suede I've come across, and then they're heavily treated with different oils and fats and conditioners, you know, lanolin, neat's foot, mink oil. Some companies do it differently, and then it gives you that nice oily smooth finish that feels a little sometimes waxy, maybe a little greasy to the touch, but it really holds up easily. It's easy to maintain if you get like a scuff or something, you know, like that right there. I have a pair of gloves on and I was able to scratch that, but if you just take your finger, rub it over, it disappears like magic. So oil treated leathers are very easy to maintain and take care of. All right, so we're back here again with these Frye boots here. I've got them all dried up and cleaned up as best we can. Again, there was that stain there that just would not want to budge. I mean, tried cleaning it up with some solvents and also sanding it a little bit, but looks like that's about the best it's going to be. At least the hard crispy section on it is fairly gone already, and you can see the boot is definitely lightened up after the cleaning. So at this point now, I've also off camera, I've done the edges on it, treated the bottom a little bit more, and just apply a good coat of wax there on the edges. Nothing too crazy, but now we're gonna treat the uppers. We're gonna use the oiled leather by Saphir. Some people call it the greasy cream. It's mainly neat's foot. It's mainly neat's foot oil based, and it's got jojoba oil in it. Don't know if I'm pronouncing that right or what, but it's specifically formulated for oiled leathers such as this here. Now, on oiled leathers, you don't want to use anything that's wax based or has any form of wax in it. The wax tends to dry out and it takes away some of the suppleness, and then it starts to crack and look kind of funny in a way. So we don't want to do that. It looks nice at first when you pick them up or on display. It looks really good, but after just a couple of wears, the parts that get creasing, like right there, really start to show that there was wax on there, and it's just not good. All right, so we're done with the boot now. Got the JR leather soles, the rubber heels as well, and we treated the uppers. I did try to do the best I can on there, but it looks like there's some serious water damage. And as far as the color, I did end up having to pull out the big guns for the upper treatment. Turns out that neutral really didn't do too much to restore that color, so I had to pull out this stuff here, the Saphir Medallion oiled cream in the medium brown number 37. And this is specifically formulated for oiled leather as well. It's a step up definitely from this stuff here, and definitely helped it out a lot as far as the color and everything, but gives you guys an idea anyways, that you got to make sure when you get a new pair of boots, you always want to treat them first. If it's an oiled leather, you don't know how long that boot has been up there on the shelf at the store or in the facility where they're being held, so always oil them up first. You could use the Saphir Products, Big 4, definitely something that has no wax in it as well, because this is oiled, so it doesn't crack and look funny as you're wearing it and just looks really bad. After allowing about 30 minutes to an hour for that to soak in, use some waterproofer on it. That definitely helps prevent from water damage such as that, and salt as well, because this is a combination of salt and water there. It also helps extend the life expectancy of that leather upper. It doesn't just keep it looking good. And just kind of keep your eye on it and reapply as needed too. It may be one of those things that you may have to reapply once every 6 months or so, depending on the conditions that you wear them in. But anyways, thanks for watching. This is just kind of an insight of how we do Frye boots when it comes to resoling them and putting on new heels. There's a lot more that we could do also for these boots. If there's other damages, these ones don't really have anything else going on wrong with them. The pull tabs are perfectly fine. They're still not damaged or ripped. The heel base is still intact. That doesn't need to be replaced. Welt is still good. But there's a lot more that can be done if you have a lot more damages ever. But just gives you a good insight of the whole process that goes into resoling them. These did get the JR sole, which is a premium grade leather sole. We could also put on a rubber sole if you'd like to. We've got Day Night, Vibram, Goodyear. There's a lot of great brands out there, Soltech, GTO, that can be put on as well. We could also put on a what's called protective sole. One here, it's just a thin rubber like that there that goes right over top of the leather like so to give you a little bit of traction. There are other tread patterns and thicknesses available too. We've got our house leather as well. We could do a half sole, so there's a lot that can be done with these boots. Just a matter of how much you love the boots, how much you're willing to invest into it, what kind of upgrades you'd like to have done to them, and so on. There's a lot of possibilities, especially because this is a Goodyear welted boot. But anyways, before I keep talking too much, thank you for watching. I hope you enjoyed the video. I'm hoping to make more videos as time goes by about different types of builds, different brands of boots, side-by-side comparisons, product recommendation reviews, and testing as well. But if you like this video, please subscribe. If you have any questions or comments, leave them down below. Give us a call, email us, or even stop by if you're local here in the Denver area. If you're not local and you'd like us to work on your shoes or boots or any other leather goods, go to our website, cobblersplusco, under mail-in orders. Just follow the instructions and ship them out to us, and we'll go ahead and take care of them for you. Otherwise, again, thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time.